Hey everyone, Dan McKenzie here with McKenzie Law Firm in Denver, Colorado. We are a law firm specializing in estate planning, estate administration, and small business counsel. Today I want to talk about advertising that I frequently see for estate planning. And of course, as an estate planning attorney, it's something I look at a lot. When I see other estate planning attorneys' ads on the internet, I look at them and sometimes I click on them if I think I could do so without charging them money or anything like that. But at any rate, the more I look at those ads, the more the internet shows me those ads, because you get caught in those cycles, of course, once the internet catches on that you're interested in something. So I see a lot of estate planning advertising. I've done a lot of estate planning advertising. And one common theme that I see a lot is messaging around protect your family, get a will in place today. I've probably used that message myself several times, but it is a very common theme among estate planning attorneys in advertising. Some sort of happy family picture and the idea of protection and get your will in place today. And certainly I recommend that just about every adult out there who, especially anyone who has anybody relying on them, really does need to have a will in place. But does having a will in place mean that your family is protected? And I'm going to say actually no, that does not. You need a will, but the will needs to be good. It needs to say the right thing. It needs to be coordinated with the other decisions that you're making that will affect how assets are distributed when you pass away. A very common situation, more common than people realize, is that a lot of wills get drafted, and actually because of the way things are set up, whether it's because you're married to someone else, you co-own assets with that person, you've designated beneficiaries, you've sent things directly to your kids or to your spouse or to someone else, that will just sits on the shelf doing nothing. That, like I say, very common situation actually. So you can do that deliberately, of course, and we advise our clients on that kind of stuff, and have had clients who really are going to use those other processes for getting assets to who they want to get them to, and just have a will in place as a backup just in case. But really the will is not the primary document. And then of course you could have a trust, and again your will is there as a backup, and so you need to make sure that your assets are put in that trust, that things are coordinated correctly. Your will is really part of an estate plan, and its importance in an estate plan varies from person to person. And a lot of people, like I say, they do this, they set these plans up unintentionally. So they've got a will in place that says, take everything I have at the time of my death, divide it equally between my kids, and then hold it in trust for those kids and give it to them when they turn 30, or a third when they're 30, and a third when they're 35, and a third when they're 40. So they got all these trust plans in place. They name their trustee. They got instructions about how they want the money handled. And then on the designated beneficiaries, on their life insurance and their retirement accounts, they name the kids as the beneficiaries. Well, that is just going to cause a check to be written to those kids. And the whole thing is going to circumvent that will, and that trust that they set up is going to be avoided. So again, does having a will in place protect your family? Not necessarily. And then the other point I would make is just that, of course, as an attorney who does probate stuff too, and trust administrations, of course I get involved sometimes in situations where families are fighting about how assets will be distributed. And just about every probate contest, and I'm trying to think here if there's even any exceptions, and I can't really think of any. Every probate case I've been involved in that got contested involved a will. And again, probably almost 100% of the time that will was even drafted by an attorney. So the fact that there was a will did not prevent the family from fighting. It did not protect assets from creditors. It did not avoid probate. Like none of the stuff that people seem to think a will does. And again, the reason just being that there were other things going on outside the will, for one thing, but the will just said stuff that the family wasn't happy with. And so you have situations, of course, an obvious one is where one kid's getting less or even nothing at all. They're going to contest that situation a lot of times, and say that their parent was unduly influenced by another kid. And then we even have situations where will just says, take everything and divide it equally among my kids. And you would think, well, that sounds pretty unoffensive and pretty fair, and who could complain about that? Well, there's a lot of situations where one kid took care of the parent near the end of their life, and they were kind of resentful towards the other siblings for not being there, and they feel like they should get more. And then the other siblings are thinking, well, actually, you were living with mom rent-free for all those years. Really, you owe us. And so this equal distribution among kids actually is viewed by them as an unfair distribution. And then the final point I would make is, even if you don't have a will, there is state law in place that says, here's what happens if you don't have a will. So again, for assets that aren't already going to be distributed in some other way. And in a lot of cases, that means take everything, send it to my spouse if I have a spouse. If I don't have a spouse, give it to my kids equally. And so kind of a lot of our clients, that's what they say anyway. So in some situations, you might just be saying something that would be said by state law. It gets a lot more complicated, obviously, for people who have blended families or kids who have special needs, or again, situations where there's trust work needed to protect money for little kids and stuff like that. So it's certainly most cases we are making tweaks on top of what the state law would provide. So, but again, just the idea that putting a will in place, any will, is going to be helpful is not true at all. It needs to be a well thought out will, a well drafted will that uses the right language, and that says what you mean for it to say, and that is coordinated with all your other estate planning decisions that you're making all the time. And so these advertisements that say protect your family, get a will, are they're oversimplifying it at best, and there's just a lot more to it. And a lot of these advertisements are for services, online services, where these services that sell kind of the fill in the blank. We ask you 10 to 20 questions and then spit out this will at the end, and we charge you $50. And isn't that an amazing savings over what a lawyer would do for you? And of course, you can take this for what it's worth from a lawyer who obviously does not agree with that, but again, they're not providing the advice about how that document fits in with all the estate planning decisions that you have made and will continue to make. And that's a very important part of what we do, maybe even more important than drafting the will itself. So it's that advice that you're not going to get from those kind of $50 to $100 services online. So that's my thought on whether a will protects your family. And if you're interested in further discussion about any of that, or we can talk with you, we are happy to do so. Again, we're in Colorado, so we need some connection there. But our phone number out here is 303-578-2745. You can visit us at themckenziefirm.com, and appreciate you watching. Thank you.